Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another solo cast of the Thriving Idealist podcast. I'm so glad you could join me today. It's been a while. For those of you who've never seen me, I'm Yvonne Ator, Dr. Yvonne Ator of the Thriving Idealist, and it's a pleasure being here today. Today I'm thinking about a part two of my earlier conversation or my earlier solo cast about empaths and the Stockholm syndrome. And today I'm thinking about how do you hold people accountable without shaming them or canceling them. So last time I told a story of how someone had sent, I had posted something that was kind of educating my audience about race and how to raise funds in a way that is aligned and not performative. And this person had sent their followers, just to kind of bombard my post, and it felt like an attack. And I had shared here how I reached out for a conversation and found myself like centering on them and making excuses for them. And that previous post was about how if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it and then come back here. But how we make excuses for the people who bully us, for the people who harm us. And after that recording, I did circle back, and reach out to this person again because I felt like I needed to really be accountable to myself for standing up for myself and really expressing the harm that this person did to me. And so I did. I reached out and I said, hey, when I reached out to have a conversation and you said you were going through your own stuff, I centered on you. And that was a mistake. I shouldn't have just focused on you and your own needs. I have my own needs, and I really need to have a conversation about how you harmed me and just how traumatized I was from that experience. And so the person responded and apologized, and I said, here's the effect of your behavior on me. I know you're a good person, but by you sending people to what felt like an attack, it traumatized me and kept me from expressing myself from a couple of years. And she was very heartbroken and sad and apologized. And we had that clearing and it was okay. About the same time, I found myself having other conversations where I was having to express that, hey, you harmed me. I found myself in Arizona without a place to stay because somebody who said that they were going to leave a key for me and a place to stay where I was visiting, that they invited me, did not leave a key for me. And I found myself on the streets of Phoenix without a place to stay at 3 a.m. in the morning. And it was a very scary experience. And again, I found myself having to have the conversation around, here's how you harmed me. Here's the behavior. Here's what you did. So, a lot of us thriving idealists, we care. We're empaths. We really care about the people that are in our lives. And those who are harming us and abusing us, we find ways to make excuses for them. Maybe they're tired, maybe they don't know enough and all of that. But then what happens is we hold all the anger in. We know that our needs and our expectations are not being met and we're upset about it, but we don't have the conversation. We say yes when we mean no. We just allow ourselves to be overscheduled. We allow our boundaries to be trod upon. We allow our needs to go without being met. And then we get really angry, or maybe someone's harming us and we just stay and take it because we believe that, maybe it's because of some life experience that person's having. And what I'd like to invite us to do today is really, again, think about our own needs and our own expectations and our own values and our own boundaries. And last time I said, in the last recording, I said that, it's up to us. We have to be able to step up and express ourselves. Well, this time I really want to talk about how do we do that? How do we express ourselves, our boundaries, our values, in a way that's aligned for us? How do we hold people accountable in a way that works for us? So a big part of setting boundaries, and you've heard me talk about this, is that you have to know what your values are, right? What's important to you, and in what ways are those values being violated, right? So if you know what's important to you, then you can know what boundaries you have, right? So if family time is important to you, you know it's not okay for someone to schedule you weekends or and holidays and not allow you to spend time with your family. So knowing what your values are helps you know what your boundaries are, right? So the other part is, do you know what your needs are? Do you know what you need to be okay, right? Do you need sleep? Do you need rest? Do you need alone time if you're an introvert, right? Do you need alone time after work instead of having to come home and go straight to like taking care of your family, for example, right? So knowing what your needs are, knowing what your expectations are, knowing what your values are and your boundaries are, then, right, you know when they're being violated. So a lot of times we say, okay, well, I expressed the boundary and, people didn't do anything about it, right? People just kept violating my boundary. Well, do they know what the consequences are for for violating those boundaries, right? How do you hold people accountable, right? So a way of really holding people accountable is, first of all, you have to be able to be accountable to yourself. In what ways are you violating those boundaries, right? You say someone is harming you, but did you actually express the boundary, right? How are you accountable to yourself? Did you express your boundary? Did you express your values? Did you express your needs? Did you express your expectations? Or are you just expecting people to just know what what your needs are and what your values are and what your boundaries are, but you've never said anything, right? So being able to first know what are your needs, what are your boundaries, what are, and then have you expressed them, right? And then so thinking about holding people accountable, how do you do that in a way that, supports you, right? Of course, if you're in an unsafe situation or harmful situation, making sure that you making sure that you remove yourself from it if you feel like your life is in danger, right? So always be mindful of making sure that you take care of yourself first. Now, let's say you're safe. How do you express those boundaries, or how do you hold people accountable? So first of all, again, knowing what you're feeling in the moment, being able to manage those emotions, right? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you upset? Are you disappointed? Are you what are you feeling? Are you anxious, right? Being able to name what you're feeling in the moment, and then can you address those feelings? Right? So naming the feeling, and then, what is the reason you're feeling that way? What boundary did they actually violate? What values did they actually violate? Or what need or expectation was not met? Can you actually name it? Right? So being clear about what's going on in the situation. And then now going into actually holding people accountable. A lot of times people wait until they're completely, they have had enough and they're blowing up. Like, right now, I was talking to someone about this. You have the Montgomery Brawl where people, started fighting because like they were tired of being being oppressed, right? And they were not going to let one more person get away with harming another Black person, right? You have Trump being indicted again, right? You have Lizzo being sued. You have all these things happening. You have physicians now. For those of you who know my work, know I've been talking about this for a long time. But physicians have now unionized and are going to probably go on strikes, and so those are going to be our reality, right? Where it's like people have had enough, and are getting really, really angry and wanting change. Well, how do you do it in a way that's aligned without blowing up everything, without blowing up the relationship, without losing your integrity? And so here's how you do it. So first of all, you have to be clear again about the values, right? Instead of labeling someone as a bigot or a racist, right? You want to focus on the identity and not, and you don't want to focus on the identity, right? You want to focus on the behavior. You don't want to focus on the identity. You don't want to say, oh, you're a racist, or hey, you're a bigot, or here you're stupid, or here you're lazy, right? You want to say, here's the behavior that you're doing that I don't like. And also bringing in the values. Here are the values that we say is important to us. Here's how you're violating them, right? You say equality is important to you. Here's how you're violating this value by you're treating this person differently from this person, right? You want to focus on the actual behavior instead of some label or some identity that you're putting on them. Once you put an identity on someone and put a label on someone, then there's no way forward. You're saying you're this and that's it. But when you say you did this, then that's a behavior that someone can actually work on, right? It's a behavior someone can actually do something about. So how are you holding people accountable in your life? How are you holding people accountable? Are you just saying, hey, you're mean, you're stupid, you're racist, you're arrogant, right? You're mean, right? Or, hey, you did not listen. I was talking to you and you did not listen. You were not listening to what I was saying. Oh, hey, you said this thing. You said this thing and it hurt me. You made this generalization about this group of people and it hurt me because you're saying that about me, right? So you said, you did, right? Right? So focusing on actual behaviors, actual things that people are saying and doing as opposed to who they are. And so, right, instead of canceling people and labeling them, right, making sure that you're focusing on the behavior. Again, of course, there's always that situation in which if you find yourself in harm's way, please remove yourself, right? Stop making excuses for the abuser or the person who's abusing you, or, and again, I just label someone abuser, right? So I just made that mistake, right? But the person who's abusing you or harming you or bullying you in any way, right? Remove yourself from that situation. We're talking about healthy situations in which there are actual behaviors that are not aligned that you can actually point out and that person can go do something about. So, yes. So I ended up having to have about, I think 9-10 conversations in like 2 weeks. It was brutal, right? I get to practice what I teach. And so being able to say, hey, you did this. I know you're a good person, but here's the thing that you did. You did not leave the key for me like you said you would. And I ended up stranded on the streets of Phoenix in 117-degree weather. That is not okay, right? Being able to express, here's what you did. That is not okay behavior. And here's how you fix it, right? So you're giving them a way forward. And you're also giving yourself a path forward as well, right? And that's hope. So maybe next time I'll talk about hope. But, basically, when you're able to have a goal and a way forward and the willpower to do it, that's the definition of hope, those three parts. And so being able to have these conversations with people, being able to do that without labeling them, focusing on the behavior, is how you hold people accountable without shaming them or canceling them or blowing up the relationship. So let me know in the chat, in the comments, if this was helpful to you. Again, empaths, we don't have to excuse bad behavior. We don't have to excuse people's behavior that are out of alignment. But we can hold people accountable in the way that supports us by, first of all, knowing what our values are, knowing how we're feeling, and being able to express those boundaries, and also express ways in which people can actually make things better. right? Things they can actually do that will make things better. I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the Thriving Idealist podcast solo cast on YouTube, and I will see you next time. Now go cultivate your light. Bye bye.